There is a certain kind of silence that follows a belittling comment. It is not just about what was said. It is about the moment afterward when you feel smaller, but you are not sure why. When the words linger longer than they should, and your confidence shrinks in a space where it should have stood firm. Belittling does not always come with raised voices or obvious insults. Sometimes it arrives as a joke that cuts too deep, a tone that carries just enough bite, a comment that sounds harmless to everyone else but lands like a dismissal in your chest. And in that moment, the question is not only what do you say back, it is who do you become next? Because how you respond says more about your power than the words they used to take it. When someone tries to make you small, you are standing at a choice. Do you absorb their energy, or do you rise above it with clarity? Not with pride, not with anger, but with composure that comes from knowing your worth does not shrink because someone else felt small enough to try to reduce you. This video is not about revenge. It is about returning to center. You will learn how to respond without losing yourself, how to disarm without disrespect, how to turn awkward moments into quiet strength. Because your confidence is not built in the easy conversations. It is built in the ones where you choose presence over panic, and that choice is always yours. The moment someone belittles you is not just an attack on your words, it is a test of your identity. It is not about how fast you respond, it is about how deeply you remember who you are. Most people react when they are hurt. Some lash out, some shut down. Others carry it home and let it echo in their minds long after the words have stopped, but you do not have to play any of those roles. Because there is a way to stand tall without shouting, to protect your voice without piercing theirs. And it starts with 3 choices. The first is simple but powerful. Ask them to repeat what they said, just that. 4 words, can you say that again? Not with anger, not with sarcasm, just steady and calm. This is not a game, it is a mirror. Because people often speak carelessly when they think you will just take it. When you ask them to repeat it, you invite them to hear themselves, to step back into their own words and sit with what they just released. And more often than not, they hesitate, they soften, or they rephrase. Not because you forced them, but because your calm gave them space to reflect. That one question pulls them out of the reactive and into the reflective. And in doing so, you shift the dynamic from power over to power within. The second strategy is one of the most disarming moves in any conversation. You ask about intent. When someone says something sharp, dismissive, or backhanded, you lean in and say, was that your intent? Again, you are not accusing. You are clarifying. Most people hide behind tone or joke when they want to deliver a message without responsibility, but asking about intent brings accountability. It stops the moment from sliding into passive aggression or emotional fog. It brings it to light. And in the light, people often choose to adjust because once they are seen, they are more likely to return to respect. You are not doing this to catch them. You are doing it to preserve clarity in a space where confusion was weaponized. The third tool is the one that requires the most strength, silence. But not the silence that avoids or retreats, the silence that anchors. The kind of silence that says, I will not be moved by this. I do not owe you my energy in this moment. I choose stillness. Because some comments are made to provoke. Some are made to bait you into a reaction so they can feel in control. But when you stay quiet, when you let the moment hang without feeding it, you take back the center. You remind them and yourself that not all statements deserve an answer, that composure is sometimes louder than confrontation, that maturity is not about having the last word. It is about knowing when words will not add value. These 3 tools may seem simple, but they are not easy. They require awareness, they require discipline, and they require a deep sense of self that is not easily shaken. Because to use them well, you must first believe that your value does not come from being understood by everyone. It comes from understanding yourself well enough to not need to fight every insult. There will be people who mock this approach, who tell you to fight fire with fire, but that is not leadership. That is reaction. And reaction may feel good in the moment, but it rarely builds anything worth keeping. What builds strength is choosing your response from a place of peace. What builds wisdom is knowing that the moment someone belittles you, they are not telling you who you are. They are telling you who they are. And your job is not to match their energy. Your job is to protect yours. Practice these strategies in small moments, in conversations that feel off, in meetings where you sense tension, in interactions that make you second guess your voice. Because the goal is not perfection. It is preparation. And the more you prepare, the more natural this becomes. Over time, you will notice something. You will stop replaying those moments in your mind. You will stop wondering what you should have said, because you will know you did not lose yourself, you led yourself. This is not about being passive. This is about being precise. It is about knowing that restraint is not weakness, it is wisdom. And when you learn to stand firm without being defensive, you become someone people cannot rattle easily. Someone who speaks with calm authority. Someone who walks into rooms and changes the temperature by simply being present. So the next time someone tries to make you small, remember this. You are not small. You are spacious. You are grounded, and you are ready. Ask for clarity. Invite accountability. And when needed, hold space with silence. Because you do not need to win the moment, you only need to own your response. Sometimes it is easier to believe in an idea when you see it in motion. So let us take this from theory into practice. A woman, professional, well-spoken, highly competent, sat in a legal hearing, not for herself, but to support someone else. Across the table sat a seasoned lawyer used to holding the room with sharp questions and sharper comments. But on this day, something shifted. As she began to speak, the lawyer interrupted. He said her remarks were unnecessary, not legally relevant. He waved a hand and spoke over her like she was furniture. But instead of flinching or raising her voice, she did something most people would not expect. She stopped. She looked him in the eye and said, "Can you repeat that?" Her tone was neutral. Her posture was calm. Her presence unshaken. That pause changed everything. The room slowed. The lawyer hesitated, caught between his own words and the mirror she just held up. He mumbled something softer, then backed off. The moment passed, but something had shifted. She did not argue. She did not explain. She just reflected his behavior back to him and let silence do the rest. Later, someone asked her why she did not fight back more directly. She said, "I did not come to prove my worth. I came to speak with clarity, and I did." That is the difference between reaction and leadership, between noise and influence. You see, people expect you to fold when they belittle you, or explode, or run. But when you stay rooted, when you ask calmly for clarity, you change the power dynamic without ever raising your voice. And that is where true confidence lives. Not in control, not in domination, but in groundedness, in choice, in knowing that your strength is not proven by how loudly you respond, but by how deeply you remain centered. One moment of composure like that, practiced and repeated, becomes a pattern, and those patterns become the foundation of your presence. So yes, this is one story, but it is not rare. It is possible for you. It just takes practice. And it starts with believing you do not have to match energy to keep your power. You only have to stay present. The reason these 3 techniques work is not because they give you clever lines to say. They work because they shift the energy of the moment. They put you back in control without needing to overpower anyone. And they remind you that confidence is not loud, it is intentional. When you ask someone to repeat what they just said, you are not only making them pause, you are returning ownership to them. Because people often speak with sharpness when they assume their words will slide by unnoticed. But when you ask them calmly to say it again, you introduce discomfort into their certainty. You are not reacting emotionally. You are holding up a mirror, and most people do not like what they see when they are forced to confront their own tone. That small move exposes the gap between what they say and how they want to be seen. It interrupts automatic behavior, and it creates just enough space for them to choose differently. When you ask someone about their intent, you are not attacking them, you are slowing them down. You are inviting them to step into accountability without aggression. It is a disarming question because it forces reflection. It is hard to be sarcastic or demeaning when someone asks you directly if you meant to hurt them. In that moment, the other person is often caught between defensiveness and clarity, and if you hold your ground with calm, they will usually retreat from the edge. This works because most people do not want to admit when they are being unkind. By asking about intent, you bring the conversation out of the shadows and into the open. And most passive aggression cannot survive when exposed to light. And then there is silence, the most misunderstood power move in communication. Silence is often mistaken for weakness, but used wisely, it is strength. Because when someone belittles you, they are often looking for a rise, a reaction, proof that they touched something sensitive. But when you meet their comment with grounded silence, you take that moment from them. You refuse to feed it. You send a clear signal that you are not going to dance to their music. Silence can feel uncomfortable, but that discomfort is not failure, it is growth. It is the sound of your inner self choosing peace over performance. And when you hold it with dignity, it creates pressure that the other person often cannot carry for long. Together, these three tools form more than just techniques. They form a mindset. One that says you do not need to match disrespect with disrespect. One that knows your value does not depend on approval. One that allows you to walk away from a hard conversation, not with regrets, but with peace. That is what this is about. Choosing how you show up, owning your reactions, leading from presence instead of ego. Because real confidence is not about always saying the perfect thing. It is about building habits that keep you centered when the conversation tries to pull you off course. These tools work not because they make you powerful in the eyes of others. They work because they make you steady in your own. Picture this. You are sitting in a team meeting. The conversation is moving fast, and you offer an idea, something thoughtful, something you believe will help. And then, without missing a beat, someone across the table cuts in and says, "Nobody asked you. It stings." Not because the idea was bad, but because the comment was meant to shrink you, to remind you of some invisible hierarchy, to make sure you know your place. Now, most people would freeze. Some would laugh awkwardly to save face. Others would shut down and never speak again. But you are not most people. You breathe, you steady your posture, and with complete calm, you look at them and say, "Would you mind repeating that?" The room quiets, eyes shift, and for the first time, the person who spoke is the one on the spot. Maybe they backtrack, maybe they pretend it was a joke, but either way, you have shifted the energy. You did not attack. You did not explain. You just held them to their words, and that changes everything. Or maybe you say, "Was your intention to dismiss me?" Not with fire, just with focus. That question lands like a pause. Because in most corporate settings, people hide behind professionalism while still carrying sharp edges. But when you speak like that, with clarity and conviction, you do not just defend your voice, you elevate the room, you model presence, and that often does more than protect you. It invites others to stand up too. These are the kinds of moments where confidence is built, not in the spotlight, not in applause, but in the small, difficult human conversations where you choose not to shrink. And in that choice, you rise. She works in customer success at a mid-sized tech company. Her name is Lena, soft-spoken, observant. She listens more than she talks. But when she does speak, her words are intentional. She is not the kind to dominate a room, but she carries a quiet authority that makes people lean in. Except one person never did. A senior colleague who always seemed to find a way to undercut her. In meetings, he would interrupt. In emails, he would copy extra people. In small moments, he would say things like, "Are you sure you can handle that?" Or, "You look tired, maybe let someone else take this." At first, Lena brushed it off, tried to stay focused, told herself he probably treated everyone that way. But over time, it started to wear on her. Not because the comments were brutal, but because they were persistent, calculated, like someone slowly turning down the volume of her confidence. Until one day, after another offhanded remark in a team huddle, something shifted. She took a breath, looked him straight in the eye, and asked, what was the goal behind that comment? No anger, no sarcasm, just curiosity wrapped in strength. The room paused. He froze for a second, then muttered something vague, but the impact had already landed. Lena had interrupted the pattern, not with defensiveness, but with presence. After that, the energy between them changed. He backed off, and more importantly, Lena stopped shrinking. She no longer second-guessed her contributions. She remembered her value. That one question was all it took to signal a new standard, not just to him, but to herself. Because confidence is not always about grand gestures. Sometimes it is a sentence, a pause, a look that says, I see what you are doing, and I am not here to play small. Lena is not loud, but she is steady. And that steadiness makes space, not just for herself, but for others who have stayed quiet for too long. There will always be people who speak without care, who use words like weapons and call it honesty. But your power is not in how you match them. Your power is in how you choose to respond. Not with silence born from fear, but with silence born from strength. Not with sarcasm, but with clarity. Because every time you protect your peace without raising your voice, you send a message. You are not easily moved. You are not here to entertain disrespect. And that message will echo louder than any comeback ever could. You are not responsible for their tone, but you are responsible for how you hold your space. You do not need permission to set the standard. And the truth is, when you speak with presence, when you ask questions instead of absorbing shame, you do not just defend yourself, you change the conversation for everyone watching. So start practicing today. Pick one of these tools. Use it in the next moment that tests you. It might feel unfamiliar at first, but the more you use it, the more natural it becomes. Confidence is not born in comfort, it is shaped in friction. It grows every time you choose dignity over reaction. If this message spoke to something inside you, consider subscribing to the channel or sharing this video with someone who needs it. And if you want to keep growing one conversation at a time, join the daily 1% impact community. Because the smallest shift in how you respond can become the biggest shift in how you live.